Dear students, today we'll take up another important topic from chapter Human Reproduction, Oogenesis. Yes, you know that gametogenesis, it is a part of gametogenesis, and gametogenesis, it is the process of producing male and female gamete respectively by the male and female sex organs. And oogenesis, till now we know this definition: the process by which the immature oogonia in the ovaries produce mature ovum. Now let us see whether this definition is correct or not. So before starting, let's know little about ovary. Ovary, you know, it is present in the pelvic region and is attached to the uterus by a ligament called mesoovarium, and to the pelvic region it is connected by broad ligaments. Ovary is covered by a layer of germinal epithelium, and inside the ovary we see stroma, which is divided into two regions. The outer one is called cortex and the inner part is known as medulla. Now some of the cell called oogonia, which are also known as germ cells, they form a layer called egg cord of Flugger. These cells, they divide mitotically to form cluster called egg nest, and some of these cells in the egg nest, they undergoes meiosis 1, but it is arrested at meiosis 1 stage only, and these cells are known by the name of primary oocyte. These primary oocytes, when they are surrounded by granulosa cell, they are known as primary follicle. And this process, it takes place at puberty? No. This process takes place in the womb itself at the embryonic stage. Most of the cells, they degenerate before reaching puberty, and around 60,000 to 80,000 primary follicles are able to survive till the attainment of puberty, and the arrested meiosis 1 will resume at puberty only. So primary follicle, after attaining puberty, they develops and get converted into secondary follicle cell. Here you can see these are secondary follicle cells, which further undergoes development and is transformed into tertiary follicle cell. Here it is, tertiary follicle cell, and the characteristic feature of this is that in this you can see the primary oocyte is surrounded by a fluid filled cavity called antrum. This yellow structure is there, white or yellowish structure, that is antrum, and it has two layers, externa and interna. So external layer is fibrous in nature, whereas interna is very important because it is this interna which secrete the female sex hormone called estrogen. So estrogen is released by interna of tertiary follicles antrum. Now this tertiary follicle will get converted into a mature Graphian follicle. When this process is taking place, at the same time, primary oocyte, where is the primary oocyte? It is inside this follicle only, red one. It will also undergoes meiotic division and form two unequal cells, namely secondary oocyte and primary polar body, which is very tiny. These changes, they take place between 13th to 15th day of menstruation. And when the LH surge means when luteinizing hormone is at its peak, on generally it is on the 14th day, the release of secondary oocyte take place. The release of secondary oocyte take place, and this process is called ovulation. So ovulation is not the release of ovum, but it is the release of secondary oocyte. At the time of fertilization, when fertilization will take place, the secondary oocyte will again undergoes meiotic division, that is the second meiotic division, and will result in the formation of ovum and secondary polar body or second polar body. So if fertilization take place, then only these changes will take place. And the remaining Graphian follicle is converted into yellow body called corpus luteum. Again, this corpus luteum is very important, because it is this corpus luteum that secrete another female hormone called progesterone, which is responsible for the maintaining of endometrium lining of the uterus and helps in the implantation of zygote. But in case if there is no fertilization, then no implantation, so in that condition this corpus luteum will degenerate, and hence endometrium layer breaks down and bleeding take place, which is known as menstruation. And the remaining corpus luteum is known as corpus albicans. And after this, the second menstruation cycle will commence. With this, we come to end oogenesis.